Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Peter Cohen,
I'm Anna Kelman.
and Rabbi Milder is about a third of the way through his sabbatical, so we will be your hosts for the evening.
We'll begin with Shir Chadash, page 344. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash.
So we are now at the part of the service where we share simchas. Simchas are something good that's happened to us in the last week that you can explain in a sentence or two. So, well, actually,
That's number
I have the
3.
simchas before the candles. Yes.
You got to go on a little family adventure up to Timber Cove, which is like near Sea Ranch up on the Sonoma coast.
Uh-huh.
Pretty fun, gorgeous views.
Yeah.
Isaac graduated 5th grade.
Anyone online
Have a simcha to share?
Yeah, well, the congregational simcha is that today they finished installing the solar panels on the roof. And so as soon as the city signs off on it, we should begin generating electricity. I'm going to make you do the math. That's 118 panels at 400 watts. So there are 400 watt panels, and there are 118 of them. It's meant to replace 110% of our average bill.
Say there's enough sun for that.
Maybe just today alone.
So our Shabbat candles will be lit this evening by Anna Coleman.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
We'll continue at the top of page 6. We enter this sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. And then we read together on the bottom of page 6, May the door of this sanctuary be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the doors of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. We continue now on page 20 with Lecha Dodi, and we will be doing verses 1, 5,
1, 2,
1,
5,
2,
and 9.
5, and 9, and for the 9th verse we rise.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmianu el hamuchad, Adonai echad, Ushemo echad, L'shemu tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, Ki mekor habracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, Kiva orech kumi uri shir daberi, Kevod Adonai legach nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, Gam b'simcha uv'sohola, Toch emunei am segula. Boi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Please be seated. We'll continue on page 26. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'amad yivrach yusei v'yamlich machusei. B'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala uvizman kariv v'yimeru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam v'lo me'omaya. Yisborach v'yishtabach v'yispor v'yisromam v'yisnaseh v'yishadar v'yisalev v'yisalal shmei kutsha brichu le'ela min kol bechasa v'shirasa tushbechata v'nechemata damiram v'alma v'yimeru. Amen. page 28. Baruch hu es Adonai hamevarach. Baruch Adonai hamevarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamevarach le'olam va'ed. On page 30, blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. Olam
doing?
on page 32.
Oh, we're not doing
Oh.
that.
Yeah, we'll do that. Top of page 31. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim.
We continue on page 32 with Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Amcha Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachenu, Kumeinu naseach b'chuchecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, U'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, Ve'orech yameinu, Uvahem negei yomam v'layla, Negei yomam v'layla. Ve'avatcha al tasir, Mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael, Ohev amo Yisrael.
As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. Page 34. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad, Baruch Shem kevod malchuto le'olam va'ed. Next page. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam B'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech uvshokbecha, uvkumecha, uvshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot beinecha, uksavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru, ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yitem kedoshim leloechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. Page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 40.
Page not going. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot, osefele, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot, osefele, osefele.
Page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravaged by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Page 44. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat,
לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Page 46, please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agita hilasecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, u'Mevi Gula livnei v'neihem, Leman Shemo b'Yahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol Torah lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim berofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayei emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech memit umechayei, Umachmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emonata l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please continue reading silently through page 62 with the words on the pages or the words in your own heart. When you have finished, feel free to be seated.
We continue with Shalom Rav on page 60. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol eit u'b'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
At this time, we ask for healing for members of our congregation and their loved ones who are ill. If you are praying for the healing of body or healing of spirit for a loved one, I invite you to recite that person's name out loud as my eyes pass yours.
And online, please unmute yourself, and if there's anyone you're praying for, please say the name or enter it in the chat.
Jay and Joanne.
Judy Balsam.
To those whose names we have said out loud,
And we add those whom we hold in our hearts and say, Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. We praise you, God, the source of healing, and let us say, Amen.
Continue with the Misha Berach in the middle of page 253. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
In this week's Torah portion, we find the words, and the people took to complaining bitterly before the Lord. Who have heard of Jews complaining? It's the nature of humans to be generally unsatisfied with their lot. A slave longs to be free. A free man longs to eat better. One who has enough to eat wants a dwelling place. One who is protected from the elements wants air conditioning. There will always be something that could be better, and we as humans tend to elevate our problem out of proportion in regard to how bad things could actually be. This is all well and good until the complainers start to look for someone to blame for their own situation. It's never my fault. It's the immigrants taking my job. It's supposedly undeserving people getting a government benefit that my taxes have to pay for. It's people who don't share my viewpoint that are ruining society. The complaining never stops. So Moses went to God with this problem and said, did I conceive this people? Did I bear them that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a nurse carries an infant? And God told him to gather 70 elders and officers of the people and create a hierarchy to handle the people's problems. Moses handled the bigger problems and delegated the others. Even 3,000 years ago, some of those problems were probably insignificant compared to the problems faced by their neighbors or their society as a whole. Some years ago in Washington, D.C., somebody hit my daughter's car while it was parked and drove away. It was the second time it had happened in less than a year, and she was pretty annoyed. But this is what you might call a first world problem. A first world problem is one that might cause an objective observer to say, is that the worst of your problems? To truly put first world problems in perspective from a Jewish point of view, we need to look at the problems that Jews faced in the not too distant past. Most of us know, or were told by our parents, about immigrants from Tsarist Russia or Holocaust survivors who refused to talk about their experiences. What happened in the Holocaust is pretty well documented. Still, something like being forced to put your children onto a truck to what at best meant you would never see them again, and more likely certain death, is a horror that deserves to be considered on its own. It's with the experiences of Jews in Tsarist Russia that I want to focus our attention. When I would ask about Russia, my grandmother did not flatly refuse to talk about it. Yet her response to anything having to do with Russia, or Europe for that matter, was, fat, and not much else. In 1952, Peter Martin, who was born in 1907 in Brooklyn, wrote a book called Landsman. As someone born in that place and time, he had firsthand contact with many of the recent immigrants and was in a position to tell their stories. The book was published in paperback in 1977, and a copy of the paperback book made its way to the Beth Emig Library, where it sat patiently on the shelf unread until it caught my eye a few years ago. The Flyleaf reviewer likens it to Fiddler on the Roof. If it was meant to be Fiddler on the Roof, it is one without makeup, songs, and cheeriness. In the form of 9 fictional autobiographies of the residents, it tells the story of a small fictional shtetl of 19 families 40 miles from Minsk. It pretty much covers the whole gamut of unpleasantness that was the life of a Russian Jew in the 19th century. This was a time when someone who saw a soldier did not think to themselves, I should thank him for his service. Rather, he thought, I hope he leaves me alone. This was a time when trouble, injury, and death came easily, and one did one's best to stay with their own. It was also a time of community-mindedness in the Jewish community, at a time when each other was all that they had. We have heard references to pogroms. In a pogrom, Jews were attacked, robbed, beaten, raped, or killed for no reason other than that they were Jews. Sadistic acts were committed out of pure hatred, while the authorities did nothing to prevent it. Landsman helps us to understand how difficult life could be even without a pogrom. One character describes how he came to live in his shtetl. His family were among the Jews who were expelled from Minsk during a plague epidemic. While traveling toward their new destination, the father died of plague. The mother tells the children to wait for her to get help. After some period of time, the children, ages 9 to 14, realize their mother will not be coming back, so they take the cart and they go on their way. A peasant sees them as vulnerable and simply takes the cart and all their possessions. The children eventually arrive at this strange shtetl alone and empty-handed, but are unquestioningly taken in by the families there. At one point, all the Jewish families in this shtetl were forced to provide housing for soldiers. This practice is specifically forbidden in the Third Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, but in Tsarist Russia, no such protection existed. In a different incident, someone is murdered by a soldier to cover up evidence of a mistake by a higher officer, and there's no punishment or consequences for his action. In the mid-19th century, the Tsar needed bodies to staff his armies for the never-ending conflicts at the time. Conscription meant a 25-year term of service. That typically meant you would never see your family again, and this led to young men running to America to avoid the draft. This was the case with my mother's father. By the late 19th century, large fines were imposed on families of conscription-age sons who fled. In Landsman, we are given to understand that the responsibility for these fines was shared communally. I am of the opinion that the community, while not happy to pay out money they barely had, would rather pay the fines than prevent their young men from escaping to safety. People in that time and place typically had nothing, and when they got something, they had to be secretive so that the landowner, the government, or the peasants did not take it away. Problems were solved communally. When children were orphaned, everyone met in the synagogue to determine who would feed and house them and who would apprentice them in a trade. Life for Jews in Tsarist Russia was daily misery and oppression, and that was considered normal. It was difficult for someone in those circumstances to believe that there could be a place where they could go where Jews were not systematically oppressed. There was a hesitation to try to make it to America, but for those who did, freedom meant freedom from things that today we take for granted. Today, some of those rights seem to be imperiled. It is easy to take for granted a lack of persecution, enough to eat, secure housing, modern conveniences, and personal transportation. When my grandmother and her generation preferred to simply not speak of Russia, it was part of our role as today's parents to ensure that our children have some understanding of where we came from, even though we ourselves can't fully appreciate the reality from which our recent ancestors fled. We need to appreciate liberty as not meaning something like no one can tell me what kind of guns I can own, but more in terms of no one can attack me for who I am. I am entitled to be protected from criminal wrongdoing just the same as a member of the majority, or I'm free to express my viewpoint even if no one else likes it. These are the things our grandparents cherished so deeply and which we must never lose sight of. When those rights are at risk, it is our responsibility to speak out. These freedoms are at risk today. Under the guise of protecting liberty, there are elements that are moving to destroy it. This year in Florida, we have twice seen the governor move to penalize corporations that dared to stand up and speak out when they felt the government was not doing the wrong thing. The U.S. Supreme Court's Citizen United decision stated that corporations are people as far as First Amendment rights are concerned, so you can't stop them from paying off politicians. But some of these politicians have decided that corporations do not have free speech rights when it comes to denouncing evil. So in light of how things could be and were not so very long ago, are first world problems worth getting upset over? Someone dented my car and ran away. The reaction of many people in this world would be, you have your own car at age 23? And many people here have them at 16. We have a responsibility to keep things in perspective. We need to speak out against true long-term threats to our freedom. The situation of having to eat manna rather than what was recalled in Egypt was not the real issue. The issue was, will they be able to eat it all? All the evils of the past can happen again. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Shabbat shalom. All right. We now turn to Olenu, which begins at the bottom of page 282.
Are they doing announcements? Somebody do
Aren't
announcements?
announcements after Kaddish?
No, they're now. I think they're now, right after the sermon, right?
This is the format I've always used. You're right. Okay. All right then. We have a member of the board who will shortly appear.
She's fast.
All right.
All right, Shabbat Shalom. I'm Janice Flansbaum, and this will be one of my last times reporting as Secretary of Congregation Beth Emek as I pass my position onto the next person. But I'm happy to be here. We have an exciting list of events to share. There's Torah study tomorrow, June 11th at 9. This will be on Zoom and will continue to be on Zoom through July 2nd. Is your son, daughter, or grandchild graduating from college or receiving an advanced degree? Please share through the link in the Once Around. Share your simcha. Summer park playdates for families with young children. The next event is Sunday, June 12th, 10 to 12 at the, I will say, updated kids playground at Ken Mercer Sports Park in Pleasanton. Please respond to the very brief questionnaire from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. It's a questionnaire. Responses are requested by Wednesday, June 15th. Havdalah and Game Night Under the Stars is Saturday, June 25th at 7:30. There will be games, music, schmoozing, and a lot of ice cream. Religious school teachers are wanted. Kindergarten, fourth grade Bet Hebrew, 4th and 7th grade Judaic Studies. Please contact Judith Radowski if interested. Join the choir for high holidays. Rehearsals will be on Thursdays, August 11th to September 29th, 7 to 9 here in the sanctuary. Save the date for the biggest festival of Jewish learning, Limud, Bay Area on Sunday, September 5th from 9 to 9 in San Ramon. And preschool registration is open, as well as their summer fun program if you know anyone who would be interested. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you all for being here on this hot night. And those on Zoom and air.
Thank you, Janice. All right, with that, we turn to page 282 and rise for the Olenu.
The microphone, does that work? Whatever.
Okay. What?
I think we're good.
Olenu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'seis gerula. Sheyikarov hashamayim imal, ushkinatu zo, b'govei meromim, hu Eloheinu einod, emet malkeinu ebezulato, kakatuv b'torato, v'yadat hayam, v'shavivoto, v'levacha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim imal, v'al haaretz, mitachas einod, v'nemar, v'haya Adonai, lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. Please be seated. Judaism teaches us the sacred duty of memory. On this Shabbat, we remember those members of our congregation and their loved ones who have died within the past 30 days. If you are observing Shloshim, I invite you to rise as I recite the name of your loved one. We observe Shloshim for Marvin Brenner and Arlene Fink. And on this Shabbat, we remember those whose Yortzeit occurred during the past week. I invite those who are observing Yortzeit for the following to rise as I recite their names. Robert C. Dolling, Hyman Aaron Jobrack, Joyce Jobrack, Mark Claybort, Mary Jane Nichols, Hannah Rosen, Marvin Shapiro, Boris Schusterman, and Bertha Zamchek. And I invite those who are observing the first year of mourning to rise at this time. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be a blessing. We rise as one congregation, united by memory and compassion to praise God's name. Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 294. Yisgadal v'yiskadash shemei rabbah.
Yalmad yivrach lirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon v'yomechon, u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gola v'yizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei olmaya. Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yishadar v'yithaleh v'yihalal shemei d'kudusha b'richu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechamata. Damiram v'yama v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all who are bereaved. Amen.
We close with Adon Olam. I don't have a page number for that.
Well, following our closing song, we will, are we doing Kiddush and Motzi outside or just Oneg? Okay, we'll do Kiddush and Motzi here, and then we'll go outside for Oneg. Adon Olam, if I recall, is page 360. Does that sound right?
It's back there somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
321.
I knew someone would know. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'et nasa v'chefsa kol hazayin melech shemo nikra v'yacharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora Vehu haya, vehu hove, vehu yeh, v'tifara, vehu echad, ve'en sheni, lehamshilo, lehachbira, v'li reshit, v'li tachlit, v'lo ha'oz, v'hamisra, vehu eli, v'chai goali, v'tzorchev li b'yetzara, v'hu nisi umanos li, menat kosi b'yom ekra, b'yado afkid ruchi, v'etishan v'ayira, Imruchi gaviati Adonai li velo ira.
Before we launch into Kiddush, I want to thank Alex and Melissa Brotman for providing tonight's Oneg in honor of Alex's grandmother, Hannah Rosen. We're very grateful for Oneg providers, as we need them every week, and it's important to come up with something. So thank you, Alex and Melissa. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kitshanu b'mitzvosav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kadsha b'yahavav ratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishis ki hu yom tehila l'mikroi kodesh zecher l'tzias mitzrayim kivanu v'charta v'yasanu kidashta mikol amim v'shavas kodshecha v'yava u'bratza hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mikadesh hashabbat l'chaim. Do we know who to thank for this challah? I guess the bride.
I guess.
Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
B'tei avon. Thank you for your patience.